everybody. Welcome to the Leg Kick Podcast. We're always looking for that WAP, that women's atomweight prospect. Stam Fairtex, Angela Lee, where you at? Give us a call. What's up, everybody? We are hyped. We are one day out from UFC Fight Night, Yas Island. Edgar versus Munhoz looks shaping up to be an interesting, if not very deep card. We're coming off the release of our very successful Mr. Shoney Carter interview. Mike, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm tired, so very tired, because there was a lot of work to get that thing up, but it is what it is.
Mike's been slaving tirelessly every day. Here at the Leg Kick, we follow a Confederate style of work structure where the small percentage of white people sit on the top, and we get the blacks to do all the work.
Man, demonetization. Okay. So you want to talk about this fight card that's coming up?
For sure. Do you want to get into a little news first? Cover some fight announcements, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Might as well.
Did we talk about Islam Makhachev and RDA on the last podcast?
No, we didn't. That is going to be an interesting matchup. I'm excited for that because RDA down a weight class. Normally he does very well against those he can out grapple. Against Islam Makhachev, I'm not sure that's going to be the case. But when RDA can apply the pressure, when he can move forward without the risk of the takedown, he does very well. So I'm interested in seeing this one.
Yeah. And Islam Makhachev, again, a lot of times with these prospects, it's walk before you can run. This is the walk before you can run matchup. And RDA is going to be a pending free agent after this matchup as well. So
is he? Maybe a little trade to Bellator, Michael Chandler for RDA. I'd be willing to. I'd be willing. That's a win-win for the UFC any way you slice it.
Although, let's be honest, that's, I love RDA, but that's a bit of an unfair trade considering what their market value to the crowds are right now.
I'm not so sure about that. I think a bit of an unfair trade to RDA or to Bellator, because I think everyone profits. I think RDA stands to make more money based on being a prospect in an organization where he can get sponsors. Michael Chandler gets to compete with the elite of the elite for the first time in his career. If RDA goes into Bellator and cleans up, the UFC gets to cement how much more dominant they are. If RDA doesn't do well, then it's just one fading star out of many. And if Michael Chandler does or doesn't do well, it's a success for the UFC. Either you get to say Bellator sucks, or we found this new rising star, a la Justin Gaethje.
Yeah. No, I say that as in that, right now, in terms of market value towards, let's say who has the more fan appeal, I would say Michael Chandler has the more fan appeal than RDA. So
right.
If we were to do a hypothetical fantasy trade, I think that's where the lose for Bellator comes in. It's you're getting RDA as opposed, But anyway, talk about.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive deeper into that one as it gets closer. Let me just pull up the You got the doc in front of you, Mike? Or?
I do actually.
Oh, bueno.
Let's see.
Bueno. Women's atomweight prospect. Where you at? Taking everything up for a mother.
Oh, that reminds me. Speaking of WAP, not fight announcement, but Megan Thee Stallion actually confirmed that she was shot by Tory Lanez and how it happened.
Who?
So, Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion.
The THE.
Oh, does she? I can't think of any good horse jokes. She got a long face.
No, okay, it's a serious matter because she actually, there's this big controversy that she was shot in the leg, right? And she was in a car with her, Tory Lanez, and another person. And the rumor was that Tory Lanez shot her some way, somehow, due to, a series of unfortunate events. And she has confirmed those rumors and has confirmed how it happened. So
Tory Lanez going to prison.
It looks like the police, because the reason why she was so tight-lipped about it in the beginning was because of these rumors, was because she didn't want Tory Lanez to go to prison. But now it seems like he is there is going to be a pending investigation.
Yeah, good. Seems like a pretty simple case, just involving celebrities. So,
I mean, you never know. Maybe Tory Lanez retorts with something, and but again, like if that's true, then Tory Lanez is scum and will be locked up and thrown away. Okay, but anyway, fights. Okay,
in more important news, I'm trying to fix this pop filter. Feeling like Pop Smoke with this pop filter. So in more important news, Jon Jones vacating the light heavyweight belt. Jan Blachowicz and Dominic Reyes will now fight for the vacant light heavyweight belt, and Jon Jones is moving up to heavyweight. I couldn't love this more because I think there's new challenges for Jon Jones up at heavyweight. Any fight you can virtually make at heavyweight is interesting within the top 5 with Jon Jones. And down at light heavyweight, I got to be honest, I was getting a bit of fatigue. Not that I don't enjoy seeing Jon Jones dominate a division, but now the division can have a little bit of life breathe back into it, and we can start building up some stars, right? Start building up some foreign markets with, let's say, Jan Blachowicz. Who knows? There's limitless possibilities, but I think this is best case scenario for everyone.
Yeah, you know what? I think someone put it best. I think Jon Jones just wasn't motivated anymore at light heavyweight. And once you get to those advanced stages of your career, and GSP said best, you don't want to just like take on challenger A for the championship belt all the time. You want like a new challenge, and this seems like a new challenge. What I will say though is the way to build up your light heavyweight division is have a promo, give it time to breathe, and not have your matchup like announced 2 days after Jon Jones has. Basically said that he's vacating the title.
That's fair. Yeah, timing could have been a little better. Other than that, I love everything about this. And to your point, I agree with you. I give Jon Jones credit for taking the time to clear out an entire division, very much in the old mold of UFC champions, as opposed to you get 2 fights and then we're on to super champ status where we're booking you in matchups with the fighter in the division up from you. I think there needs to be more of that, just tirelessly clearing out their division. And I think if anyone has earned a shot up a weight class, it's him.
One of the whole things about the UFC was Dana White said it. I want to say 10 years ago was he wanted legitimacy of the division, right? He wanted every division to feel legitimate, right? It doesn't feel legitimate when guys are fluid, like are just going back and forth every division with fluidity, right? It's
Dana White, I want every division to feel legitimate. Also, Dana White creates women's 145.
It's because Cyborg couldn't make 135. Man.
No, I know, we all know it, but it's a skeleton in the division, and once Amanda Nunes retires, it'll no longer exist. But anyways, what potential matchups do you envision for Jon Jones in his heavyweight debut?
Oh, you know what it is? It's Francis, and that's Although I heard a very interesting thing. Stipe versus Francis, Blades Lewis, Jones Rosenstruik. Let's go.
Okay. I'm with you there, except with a few tweaks. Now, I agree that Jones Francis shouldn't be right away because I think Francis has, he's earned his keep in that division, and he's been blowing past every single contender in his way. So give Francis the shot. Here's where I disagree with you on that. I think Lewis versus what's his name? Wrestler Blades. Lewis versus Blades is a foregone conclusion, more or less. Other than some...
It's been announced. That's the only reason why.
Oh, it's been announced? Yeah. See, I wouldn't have gone that way. I would have gone Jones versus Lewis. Sorry, Jones versus Blades, right? Mm-hmm. It's a low-risk matchup for Jon Jones in that, Blades primarily a wrestler. I feel like there's not really...
knocking him out.
Yeah.
I get He's not
so you have time to build up that prospect and that star. Blades will probably get a title shot down the road, but as it is now, if Francis were to win the belt, Blades isn't getting within 100 feet of the title. And then, I don't know, I think like Rosenstruik versus Lewis is a fun matchup for the fans, kind of a win-win any way you slice it.
See, I would have went Rosenstruik Lewis, but Derek Lewis already agreed to fight Blades in November, so it's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. All right. It would have, if I had my way, I would have said, actually, this is what I would have actually said. I would have said Lewis Jones, Give him Derek Lewis. Let's do it and see how he does. See how he does.
That could be a fun fight. That could be a fun fight. I think it would be. Again, that's one of those fights where I tend to think it's a foregone conclusion. No disrespect to Derek Lewis, but yeah, it's a fun fight and one that's probably going to last past around. You're going to get to see Jon Jones answer a couple of questions at least about Jon Jones, like will he have cardio up at a weight class? Will he fade in the later rounds? Will his power carry?
Yeah.
Not that he's known as a particularly big power striker at 205, more of a fighter who accumulates damage to wear you down for a finish, but it's these are interesting questions to be asked, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Sure.
Let's see. Last one I actually want to get into, like in terms of announcements before we actually get into this card because we don't really have time like that. But Anderson Silva has agreed to fight Uriah Hall after Yoel Romero basically had to pull out due to injury. So. Anderson Silva is stepping up, being a company man.
Sorry. Oh, Yoel, that's right. I forgot that Yoel was supposed to be scheduled in against Hall.
So, Anderson Silva is stepping up and being a company man, but,
as he did
he's
late
45.
notice with Cormier.
Sorry?
As he did late notice with Cormier when Jones pulled out, if you remember.
Yeah. I mean, I think what it is that Dana White, I think, in his heart of hearts, has never forgiven Anderson Silva for Abu Dhabi. And Anderson Silva knows that the UFC Hall of Fame.
I think
it is.
I don't know, man.
It's a theory. You know what I'm saying? It's a theory.
It seems like this is kind of the UFC's matchmaking strategy in general with these big stars. Like, milk them for every single drop of blood they have. A la BJ Penn, or who's another star who's had a big drop off like that.
I mean, Anderson Silva
Arcane Velasquez.
Drop off. Like I wouldn't say Anderson Silva has had a big drop off. Like a lot of his fights, he's relatively competitive. Like save for the Jared Cannonier one, and even that one, it's not like he wasn't competitive. It was like a fight-ending kick. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I wouldn't say it's a huge drop off. Like he's definitely not BJ Penn, but
it's a drop off from best in the world.
Yeah. Oh, 150%. All right.
So I mean,
but like he's still like I get what you're saying. He's 45. He's not the same guy, and Uriah Hall should have a relatively easy time with him.
Yeah, we'll see. For whatever reason, I have this creeping suspicion that the fight's going to be boring. I don't know why, but I feel like
two counter fighters.
Yeah, I think neither man is going to be particularly gung ho to bring the fight to like their competitor. I don't know why, but I don't think either man is going to force the points. And I think when that tends to happen in Anderson Silva fights, we tend to get lackluster performances.
But see, here's the thing, though. I was saying that, like, after the second Weidman fight, I would have loved to see Anderson Silva come back with a more pressure-oriented style. I would have loved to see him, like, not necessarily in the vein of, like, of Wanderlei Silva or something, but intelligent pressure. Like, lead a little more, right?
I would say that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I would say that Silva made his money as a counter fighter, and I think at an advanced age, when your body's clearly giving out on you, it's not exactly a good time to start putting yourself in harm's way more. He if you remember before his UFC run, he fought a lot of his early career like that and had mixed success, right? He wasn't the Spider that we knew him in his long title reign at middleweight, but. I'm dubious about large stylistic changes.
I'm not saying a tweak every once in a while, just like pressure a little more, because what's going on with guys is they're just waiting Silva out now, and picking their shots, and Silva's just not as fast as getting there, but at the same time Silva's dangerous. So like, which is insane to say about a guy at 45 years old. So they just kind of like pick him apart, wrestle him, play it a little safe to a victory.
I'm going to fact check you here. Hold on, because I want to see his last few performances.
So, like, aside from Jared Cannonier, who went for it on Anderson Silva, let's see. So he loses to Israel Adesanya in a relatively competitive match, which was kind of the same thing. Israel Adesanya picked his shots.
Competitive, not in the sense that I think Anderson was anywhere near winning, but he wasn't out of the fight. He wasn't being brutalized, but I think Israel controlled the. Okay, here we go. So in his last, oh my God, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In his last 8 fights, he's won 6
and one
no contest with Nick Diaz,
which was a win, but he tested positive for steroids.
and Diaz tested positive for marijuana. So lost to Michael Bisping,
which I still think he won that fight, to be honest. But like, hey,
you're
Bisping
crazy.
got shot off of it, and
He was outboxed pillar to post.
All right, whatever. Honestly, we have to talk about fights, so I'm not willing to have an argument.
Yeah. Okay. That being said, Anderson, from our home to yours, it's time to stop.
I love him though. He was my favorite growing up. He was great. He's 45. You know what I'm saying? He's 45.
Yeah, you're clearly not in a poor financial position. Go enjoy your kids. Like you've done enough here, Anderson. Right off into the sunset.
Like, you know what? Like with the Shoney Carter interview, you know, some guys just like this is all they know and they love it, and you know maybe that's just Anderson Silva. Like, and clearly like this is a savant, a student of the game. Yeah. With Anderson Silva. So it's one of those things. All right.
Let's move on. Okay, so
the card
this weekend we have Pedro Munhoz versus Frankie Edgar, UFC Fight Night, Yas, Queen Island. This is going to be at Yas, Queen Island, yeah.
Like, for real? I saw Apex.
Well, let's look this up right here.
I mean, you know, there's no difference, which kind of makes me sad. I want an outdoor cage.
We're not going to get it, my man. We're not going to get it.
Like, honestly, they should just keep it at Apex because, like, there's no difference. Like, you're just literally just sending guys to an island. Right?
Well, the big difference is that with Yas Island, you can get international fighters on the card, whereas flying into the United States, not exactly an easy deal.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's the whole reason why they wanted to set this up, I believe. So, I'm intrigued by this matchup. I think a prime Frankie would have this no problem. My big question is how much is left in Frankie Edgar's gas tank. Going back through Pedro Munhoz's career, he really he succeeds when fighters kind of he lulls them and then brutalizes your leg until you step in and trade. Cody Garbrandt fight, right? And trading with him is always a big mistake because generally he's got a better chin than you. His defense isn't phenomenal, but he's got a cinder block for a head. I think if Frankie can keep it on the back foot, right? Circle the cage, avoid shooting for double legs, and keep a high pace, he should have this. But I'm not ruling out Munhoz's chance to catch Edgar on the way in at some point.
Fair enough. I think Munhoz has it. Like I think Munhoz has it. You know, Munhoz. I think the one thing you've explained is Munhoz is really, really tough, like extremely tough. You know, ungodly level tough sometimes, and that's gonna go away from him as he is 33, and generally around 35 is when you start to see, you know, that chin start to go away, but not a single loss by knockout. And he takes a lot of significant strikes if you look at his past performances. So guys land at the last fight against Cody Garbrandt. Actually, Cody, I think, landed at an impressive 54% clip. Nope, 35. Never mind. But against Aljamain Sterling, it was 54%. So you're looking at a guy here who's going to take some shots. He's going to take one to kick you in the leg. He's going to force you into a brawl and maybe come out on top with a knockout victory. I don't think Frankie has the chin for that right now in his later stages. So
I think if Frankie can fight the right fight, though, I don't necessarily think it needs to be a contest of chins. And you could be right. I could very well see Pedro Munhoz knocking out Frankie Edgar. But I see more technical advantages in Frankie's corner. I think volume really troubles Pedro Munhoz, like we saw in the Aljo fight. Yeah. Now, that being said, Aljo comes with a much more unorthodox attack than Frankie Edgar, whereas Frankie's much more boxing centric. Boxing centric attack is, you know, I'm not going to say easier to time, but
You know what? I
It's
will say we are seeing an evolution of a lot of ground fighters really going to a kick heavy style, right?
yes,
Because
all
it
the way in, all
keeps
the way out.
yeah, because it keeps them all the way out, and if they fall, that's what they want to do anyway. They're on the ground. They're hooray. So
Sure, sure.
you know,
Mind you, I think volume troubles him. I think when he gets put under volume, he focuses too hard on just trying to land and swings at every single feint and counter that sorry, every single feint that comes at him, right? So I think if Frankie can keep up a high pace while staying out of danger, he can do well. I think another thing that gives me confidence for Frankie Edgar is that Pedro Munhoz has a hell of a guillotine, which would put Frankie in a lot of danger if he was shooting in. I like Frankie's chances if he counters Pedro Munoz's low kicks though with that post single leg he does. It's almost like a knee tap where
yeah,
he sticks his hand out on the shoulder as if he's throwing a jab and then goes low for the leg. He hit it against BJ Penn. He hit it against a lot of fighters. So if he can punctuate this fight as like high volume, circling the cage and landing when it's safe to do so with countering the low kicks with takedowns, I think he can coast to a 5-round victory. But
yeah. I
Frankie's
just
not always one to stay out of trouble as well
that's
and get.
that's my thing, right? It's like I just don't. It's not Frankie's style to not take a hard punch at some point, and I just don't see him having that same chin that led him to not be finished for basically, what is it, 20 UFC fights or something like that. Like it's not the same.
Yeah.
Um, Old Frankie, I'm like Frankie wins this one, but I just think Pedro Munoz has it, and the thing about it too is like, while I don't put a lot of stock in that Cody Garbrandt win, I do think it does show that, look, Pedro, it's going to be hard to get one, Pedro out of there, and two, Pedro demoralized as he's going along, right? So, I see Pedro with the W here.
Okay, so our next fight on the card, Ovince St. Preux versus Alonzo Menifield. This is interesting. Two fighters coming off of losses actually. OSP with that unsuccessful bid at heavyweight in that very boring fight that I seem to have erased from my memory. Ben Rothwell, that's it. Man, that was an awful fight. I feel like my psyche scrubbed that fight clean from my memory so that I could forget it.
He looked
what?
He
did. He did look thick. He did look thick. I think at heavyweight he kind of lacked a lot of the advantages that a light heavyweight would have over a heavyweight though. Like he's not a volume puncher. He throws one strike at a time, gets by it and being awkward and weird and having a decent top game. But in a division up, that's not necessarily going to benefit you. And Alonzo Menifield, coming off of that surprise loss to Devin Clark able to outwork him in the later rounds. That wasn't too long ago, actually, was it?
Yeah,
June 6th. June 6th, yeah. Outworked by Devin Clark. Devin Clark kind of showing that if you can take some of the pop out of his punches, make him fight a wrestle-heavy game, you can slow him down and outstrike him on the feet as well. So this is an interesting test for Menifield.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I would say Menifield gets the bounce back is I think Ovince St. Preux is 137, so he's getting to that age where he is what he is. You know what I'm saying? And he's regressing to at what he is. The other thing though is Ovince St. Preux doesn't really have a style that I think will cause Alonzo Menifield problems. You said it yourself. It's volume, right? And it's wrestle heavy. It's a wrestle heavy game. Ovince isn't really an offensive wrestler like that. And I see Alonzo, really getting a bounce back win here.
How do you see him doing it?
Staying on the outside, throwing that nice. He's got a really nice straight. I think he's going to really take advantage of that. Throw that straight. I'm not saying he's going to get Ovince St. Preux out of there real quick, but he's gonna keep it at boxing range, I think, and he's gonna make sure to just use that power in nice linear attacks.
Yeah, my problem with seeing OSP winning in this fight is I don't see him being able to push a pace on Menifield that's going to really be able to trouble him. And as far as offensive grappling, I see it. I see him having a difficult time keeping Manningfield up at the fence and securing takedowns, right? Especially because, man, the only way I really see OSP winning this is if he's able to catch him somehow out at range, maybe with a head kick like he's done in the past, or it just turns into, for whatever reason, a boring fight where the two are staring in the mirror, and that loss affected Manyfield more so than we might suspect, because that'll happen sometimes. An undefeated prospect will take a loss very harshly, and it'll take them some time to bounce back. Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis being a prime example. But yeah, I don't like OSP's chances, and this is going to sound mean, but for the future of the division, I think maybe it's time to get a little bit of new blood in there, because I really do think we have seen the upside of OSP and
it was
the best
sad
that he can
because
offer.
at one point OSP was next champion material, right? A lot of people were talking about him being like the next guy.
I don't know if I'd go that far. That might have been media hype, to be honest with you.
It might have been, but I think a lot of people saw a bright future for him, and he had a run. That Von Flue choke was killing everybody, but
largely I think he'll have a career. His career will be remembered for, the oddities, punctuated by a few great moments, a few boring fights, but ultimately we'll remember him for some spectacular finishes. But I don't think that at 37 he can necessarily. And
this.
Wait, opening up the butt. Okay. So.
Not even going to by that with a response.
Silence is agreement. So these as far as these bottom three fights in the card, I'm having a hard time. I know that I've seen
really not the best card.
Not the deepest. I remember Maria Agapova. I think she's only had one fight in the UFC, which she knocked her knockout of Hannah Cyphers. Ukrainian prospect, so I can always support my fellow Ukrainians getting in there and doing well. But no, kind of after those main and co-main, this card drops off hard. But hold on, Austin Hubbard on the prelims. That's an interesting decision. Yeah, not a big fan of that.
I think Austin Hubbard got a little more press to the casual fan after the Max Roscoff fight. He basically made the man quit on the stool. I hate saying the word quit, but I think, this is a real good chance for him against Joe Selecki, another guy that this is a very questionable decision to keep these guys on the prelim, but
yeah. First of all, I'm not so sure if you're so hesitant about saying the word quit. Maybe you shouldn't be such a big fan of Stephen A. Smith. Anyways, Austin Hubbard, I definitely agree with you that this is a questionable decision to keep him on the prelims, because I think one of the main advantages that the UFC has had during COVID is that they've been able to put on cards with regularity, whereas other sports haven't. And we've been seeing a few of the same familiar faces reappearing. Mm-hmm. Austin Hubbard is one of those who's taken advantage of his ability to get in there and fight based on, I guess, accessibility to the UFC's cards, ability to travel or whatnot, whatever. Many guys are hungry to step in there. My point being is, if the fans are seeing these guys turn up every other month, they're becoming more and more familiar with them. Get them on the main card. Use that COVID, that COVID popularity that they're gaining to build a name for them. And I think Austin Hubbard, especially after that Roscoff fight, possibly a star in the making.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. He could definitely be that. A lot of the old school UFC guys used to be this not necessarily a gatekeeper, but guys people enjoy seeing come out, like a Big Country, for example, right?
Sure, a draw.
Yeah, a draw, right? Not necessarily a needle mover, but fun guys. Rick Story was like that.
Hard to say what his upside is, especially when he's. What impresses me is that his strength. He's had some strength of competition against.
Mark
black belt world champion in Davi Ramos, and then, an Olympic silver medalist in, what's his name? You know who I'm talking about. Know the guy.
Madsen.
Marco Madsen, yeah. So, yeah, who's to say? He's impressed me as of late, but Yeah, not the most stacked card, but I'll be watching nonetheless, and I'm sure there's going to be some craziness for us to prattle on about Sunday.
No, it's interesting because what's the word I'm looking for? I think Austin Hubbard versus Joe Solecki is a main card fight on this card. You know, but yeah, like it is what it is, right? Like it is what it is. You know, plus he's going to be on television, right? And I think that's probably half the reason why people are like know Austin Hubbard and know his name is because he's on television. So maybe this is a weird little trick, you know, to get Austin Hubbard on television as much as humanly possible, so that people like him, know him, and then when he goes to the main card, people are like, oh, I want to pay to see Austin Hubbard. You know,
sure, but, yeah. It's just on a card that's not as deep like this. I definitely see an ability to get him on the main card, especially over some of these other fights. But since we've kind of squeezed this lemon for all the juice it can give us, we've got a fan question here. Do you want to address this fan question? Because it seems like Sunday we're going to have more than enough to talk about.
All right, fair enough. All right,
so this comes in from our boy Suleiman, who asks us thoughts on a fighters union in MMA, and then he says fan, fighter, and promoter perspectives.
Okay, so let's just get this one out of the way. If you're a promoter, you don't want a fighter union at all. You don't want a fighter union or an association at all. It's harder to make the fights. It's harder to get rule changes, because the one thing about unions is unions move slow, right? Due to just the nature of democracy, they move slow. So I would say that, if you're a promoter, you don't want it. If you're a fan, it's interesting, because I really do feel it's a lot dependent on your political affiliation as to whether you'd warm up to it. But I think that there are advantages and disadvantages. For example, right? If you want to justify your sport to a fan of another sport, saying you have an UFC PA is super important. I think a players association is super important, or a UFC FA, Fighters Association, because now all of a sudden those guys can make decisions of, like, for example, the NBA and NBA Cares, right, where they go and help out the community. Things like, agreeing to certain terms in their contracts that have to be in their contracts. Things like a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement. Those things matter in the legitimacy of a sport. And UFC, the one thing about the UFC is you're trying to legitimize themselves as a sports league, right? But on the other hand, now all of a sudden, if fighters are going to be a lot more, what's the word? I want to present this in a way that doesn't seem kind of exploitative. Like, they're going to be knowing of their rights. That's the best way I could say that.
And we want to send in the strike breakers to keep them down.
It's weird to say it like that, but the thing is that, you're not going to see as many Donald Cerrones who come in there and fight, like, every other month. And for me as a fighter, or, kind of sort of a fighter,
you're a fighter, Mike. Stop being humble.
I don't want to see a Donald Cerrone fight every month, but fans love that, right? Yeah. So,
okay. Yeah, you definitely raised some good points, and I think it goes a long way to bringing some legitimacy to the sport, which is much needed. And it seems like the UFC wants to have the trappings of legitimacy, but not really relinquish the control they get as, a quote unquote not illegitimate organization, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like they want the jerseys, but they don't want to give the fighters what they're worth. And I would argue that long term, this is actually in the interest of the UFC.
Now, that too. Like,
I'll say that it's in their interest in the same way that it would be in the interest of Walmart to pay their employees a minimum living wage, and to not outsource labor to Myanmar to pay people 15 cents an hour. Sure, you're going to lose money in the short term because you've got to divide up your profits a little more equitably, but you end up, in the case of Walmart, creating a happier group of employees that's going to be more motivated, making more money, and you're building up a base of consumers in the long run. You're investing in a base of consumers who are then going to go back and buy your products. Now, how does this fit into the UFC? I think it's a long-term.
Don't forget the other part where you also build up that community to be self-sufficient.
Yes.
And so in the long run, they can pay for your stuff more and more. But anyway,
exactly. Sorry. Yeah. While the comparison's not necessarily one-to-one, I think you have happier fighters that are better looked after, right? That's huge because they're going to be more likely to speak favorably of your organization, right? More money is going to be made. And if more money is made, you're going to create bigger and bigger stars. If you create bigger and bigger stars, you're going to create more prospects because now people are going to see this as a legitimate career option, right? In fighting, too long has been the case that you have to get to the top of the mountain in order to make that all of that money. In the NBA, if I'm just a third tier bench warmer, I'm going to be making $400,000 a year. So if more and more people view this as a legitimate career option, you divide up the revenue a little bit better, you're going to create more and more stars. More and more young, athletic men and women are going to see this as a potential path, right?
Yeah.
Because the juice is going to be worth the squeeze. And when that happens, you're going to get more interesting results, better fights, and more eyes on your sport. So in the long term, and better athletes. From the fighter perspective, I think it's.
I said this in the Venom video too, one of our popular videos on the YouTube channel of, look, already because they're taking punches to the face, fighters are taking punches to the face, the UFC is fighting an uphill battle to get the best athletes to fight in their sport, right? Already. And now you're telling me that because the pay, like you have to get to the top of the mountain just to not work a second job or have an OnlyFans page, that,
Did you say OnlyFans page? Page. If you're listening, you don't have to go to Bare Knuckle. OnlyFans/page fanzant.com. Sorry, go on, Mike. Go on.
Okay. No, but like Jessica Penne. But I'm just saying, like, the whole point is that you don't have, like, if you want people to think your sport is if you a legitimate career path. You know what I'm saying? It's a rise to the top. And so I think that having a fighters union can get you there because then fighters can, push for better pay. Now lockouts are going to be a hell of a thing. And that's going to suck for fans, and fans are going to like that. And there's going to be slow moving guys, and unions will put in place rules that'll make sure that you don't get Donald Cerrone's anymore. And that's going to suck. But I think as a fan in the long term, you're going to like it, you're going to need it, and it's going to be good for you to get better athletes and better fights. But again, it's all dependent on what's the word? Your political leanings and therefore your view on unions in general, if you're going to like a fighters association.
Here's the thing, and I put some thought into this question because, I could talk about how it benefits the fighters in the obvious way. Everybody knows you're going to get a better revenue split, and fighters are going to be getting paid more of what they deserve because they're the ones bringing eyes to the action, right? Not the corporate bureaucrats and the guy who the matchmaker, and no, the fighters are the ones who bring in your revenue. I think a couple other ways that people don't realize that it would benefit them. One of those ways is that better matchmaking. It would make for less predatory matchmaking, I fundamentally believe, in that fighters would have some power to negotiate against the UFC and potentially not see these like squash matchups that we see nowadays because they have an organization representing their interests with comparable power to the UFC. Also, you'd see fighters that I'm personally interested in seeing get those 3 fights a year that they deserve. For instance, you got a fighter like Ryan Hall, who's been put on the shelf, partially because other fighters don't want to fight him because there's not a big upside in that. Also, partially because whatever reason the UFC doesn't feel like pushing Ryan Hall because of his grappling heavy style. I want to see Ryan Hall. You want to see Ryan Hall. We all want to see a meritocracy where good fighters get fights and move up the rankings, bar none, right?
And fighter unions will give you that. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. So I think it's all day. Right. Yeah. This is a good one. Thank you, Suleiman. Question from me: when is Paige Van Zandt getting an OnlyFans page?
You know what? You know what? Honestly, let me say this. I really hope that if she does do it, don't post no P, don't post no T. Just don't. Don't do it.
Why, Mike?
Because
Why?
Because then it will expose all these thirsty men who are gonna pay up the tooth for this.
So, why are you so sex negative? Why are you so sex negative, Mike?
I'm not sex negative. It's just I don't understand why you pay for adult entertainment when it's free. It's free.
Would you pay for Paige Van Zandt's OnlyFans page?
No, because it's free and it's gonna leak.
Wow, Mike, exposing here that he refuses to pay for sex work, and he believes that he can just find a leak online and, you know, and compromise Paige Van Zandt's hard labor that she's doing by taking these pictures. You don't view sex work as legitimate work. You're the kind of guy who pirates movies, aren't you?
That's not my point. Is that the market has devalued sex work to such a level that this is getting insane. No, you get what I'm saying?
Wait, how's it devalued sex work when these women can make a career off of it? Hey, the leg kick where we talk about social issues.
You know what? I'm not talking about this.
Because you know I'm right. Yeah.
It's not that. It's just that, like, we are at our best when we talk MMA. So I'm going to just...
Fair enough. I just want to say, for all of you wondering where David and Jeremy are, they made the fatal mistake of escaping from my basement, put them back in, had to keep those fools on a lockdown. They will be dog food in no time. Hopefully they don't escape and make it out for Sunday's podcast, because that would be embarrassing. So if you guys can, you're willing and able, please go to our page. Our interview with Shoni Carter is up. It is entertaining. It's wild. It's all over the place. Shoni's a hell of a character, and we loved having him on. What else we got in the works, Mike? Returning to studio soon, so we can finally get rid of this 2-bit setup where, you know, you see Mike's moisturizer and, you know, my snake tank in the background, and, you know, Jeremy picking his nose. It's so we're going to be returning to studio very soon. Any other updates, news?
No, that's pretty much it.
And if you get us to 1,000 subscribers, Mike and Jeremy and David will call one of their ex-girlfriends live on air. So
I would love to see David call his ex-girlfriend right in front of Victoria. That would be amazing. That
would go viral for all the wrong reasons.
I would pay up the tooth for that. Okay. All right. Later, everybody.